Hi, and welcome to Mrs. Pam Reads. We are continuing in the Magic Circle by Katherine Neville. In our last video, it was Sunday, and the emperor had a seafaring captain escorted into his presence to explain a voice he'd heard while he was sailing past an island. And that ended that section. We're in a new section, and it starts with a poem or reading entitled The Witness. I only am escaped alone to tell thee my thought, darkened as by wind the water. As by wind the water. Okay. There's always someone has to tell them, isn't there? Someone chosen by the chance of seeing, by the accident of sight, by the stumbling on the moment of it. Unprepared, unwarned, unready, thinking of nothing, and it happens, and he sees it, caught in that inextricable net of having witnessed, having seen. It was I only, I alone. The moment closed us together in its gaping grin of horrible incredulity. I only, I alone, to tell thee, I who have understood nothing, have known nothing, have been answered nothing. And that's by Archibald MacLeish. And then it says, God always wins. Also by Archibald MacLeish. It says JB. I'm not sure what that means. And now, so we go from Jesus and Caesar's time to 1989. So this is Snake River, Idaho, early spring 1989. It was snowing. It had been snowing for days. It seemed the snow would never end. I had been driving through the thick of it since well before dawn. I stopped at midnight in Jackpot, Nevada, the only pink neon glow in the sky through at least 100 miles of rocky wasteland in my long ascent from California back to Idaho, back to my job at the nuclear site. There in Jackpot, against the jangle of slot machines, I sat at a counter and ate blood rare grilled steak with fries, chugged a glass of Scotch whiskey, and washed it down with a mug of hot black coffee. The multi-ingredient cure-all my Uncle Ernest had always recommended for this kind of stress and heartache. Then I went back out into the cold night and hit the road again. If I hadn't stopped back in the Sierras, when the first fresh snow came down for a day of skiing, I'd suddenly felt I needed to soothe my aching soul. I wouldn't have been in this predicament now, sailing along on black ice in the middle of nowhere. At least this was a nowhere I knew well. Every wrinkle of the road along this trek, from the Rockies to the coast. I'd crossed it often enough on business for my job as a nuclear expert. Ariel, Ben, girl nuke. But the reason for this last jaunt was a business I'd as soon have missed. I could feel my body slipping into autopilot on that long, monotonous stretch of highway. The dark waters of my mind started pulling me back to a place I knew I didn't want to go. The miles clicked away, the snow swirled around me, the studded tires crunched on the black ice that flowed beneath. I could not erase the dappled image of the grassy slope back there in California, the smoothly geometric pattern of those tombstones moving across it, those thin layers of stone and grass, all that separated life from death, all that separated me from Sam forever. The grass was electric green, that shimmering, wonderful green that only exists in San Francisco, and only at this time of year. Against the brilliant lawn, the chalk-white gravestones marched in undulating rows across the hill. Dark eucalyptus trees towered over the cemetery between the rows of markers, their silver leaves dripping with water. I looked through the tinted windows of the limousine as we pulled from the main road and doubled back into the Presidio. I had driven this road so many times when in the Bay Area. It was the only route from the Golden Gate Bridge to the San Francisco Marina, and it passed directly by the military cemetery we were entering. Today, observed up close and in slow motion, it was all so beautiful, so ravishing to the eye. Sam would have loved it here, I said, speaking aloud for the first time during the ride. Jersey, sitting behind me in the limo, said curtly, well, after all, he is here, isn't he? Or what's all the hoopla about? At these close quarters, I caught a whiff of her breath. Mother, how much have you had to drink? You smell like a brewery. Cuddy Sark, she said with a smile, in honor of the Navy. For God's sake, this is a funeral, I said irritably. I'm Irish, she pointed out. We call it a wake. Drink the buggers on their merry way. In my opinion, a far more civilized tradition. She was already having trouble with the 3-syllable words. Inwardly, I cringed, hoping she wouldn't try to give part of the eulogy that was to be delivered at the military graveside. I wouldn't put anything past her, especially in this state of inebriation. And Augustus and Grace, my well-starched father and stepmother, who disapproved of everything, were in the car just behind. The limousines pulled through the iron gates of the Presidio Cemetery and slid on past the funeral parlor. There would be no indoor service, and the coffin was already sealed for reasons pertaining, we'd been told, to national security. Besides, as we had also been told somewhat more discreetly, it might be hard to recognize Sam. Families of bombing victims usually preferred not to be afforded that opportunity. The cortege moved along Lincoln Avenue and pulled up the drive, sheltered by brooding eucalyptus at the far end of the cemetery. Several cars were already parked there, all with the recognizable white license plates of the U.S. government. Atop the small knoll was a freshly dug open grave, with a cluster of men standing around it. One was an army chaplain, and one with a long, thick braid of hair looked like the shaman I'd asked for. Sam would have liked that. Our 3 limos pulled up in front of the government vehicles. Jersey and I in the family car, Augustus and Grace behind us, and Sam in the black limousine up front, in a lead-lined coffin. We all got out and started up the hill as they unloaded Sam from the hearse. Augustus and Grace stood quietly aside, not mingling, which I frankly appreciated, so Jersey's breath wouldn't be a problem, unless someone lit a match near her. A man with dark glasses and a trench coat separated from the gaggle of government types and moved over to speak a few words to the other 2 family members. Then he approached Jersey and me. I suddenly realized we weren't dressed for a funeral. I was wearing the only black dress I owned, one with purple and yellow hibiscus all over it. Jersey was in a chic French suit, that particular shade of ice blue that was her trademark when she was on the stage because it matched her eyes. I hoped no one would notice our lapse in protocol. Mrs. Ben, the man addressed Jersey, I hope you don't mind waiting for a few more minutes. The president would like to be here for the ceremony. He didn't mean the president, of course, but a former president, the one Jersey called the peanut farmer, whom she'd performed for when he himself was in the White House. Hell no, said Jersey. I don't mind waiting if Sam doesn't. Wow. Then she laughed, and I got another waft. sniff, smell. Though I couldn't see the man's eyes behind those glasses, I noticed that his mouth was tightened into a thin line. I stared at him in stony silence. The helicopter was coming down across the road, settling on the Crissy Field landing strip beside the bay. Two dark-paned cars had driven out to meet it and collect our distinguished guest. Mrs. Bain, the shaded one went on, sotto voce, as if in a spy movie. I'm instructed to tell you that the president, acting in behalf of our current administration, has arranged this morning's agenda. Although your son, as a civilian advisor, was not technically a member of the military, his death took place while he was performing a service for, I should say, rather, operating in an advisory capacity to the military. Our government therefore plans to honor him appropriately. There will be a small ceremony, a military band will play, and then the deceased will be given the 17-gun salute in farewell. After all, the president plans to present you the Distinguished Service Medal. What for? Said Jersey. I ain't the one who died, sugar. The ceremony did not go exactly as planned. After it was over, Augustus and Grace retired to their suite atop the Mark Hopkins on Nob Hill, sending a message that they were expecting me to join them for dinner. Since it was just lunchtime, I took Jersey to the Buena Vista to drink her lunch. We found a wooden table at the front windows overlooking the wharves and the bay. Ariel, honey, I'm really sorry about what happened, said Jersey, tossing down her first glass of scotch as if it were milk. Sorry doesn't help, I said, repeating a line from hers from my childhood when I'd done something wrong. I'm having dinner with Augustus and Grace tonight. What the hell am I supposed to say to them? F them, said Jersey, looking at me with those famous icy blue eyes, which seemed surprisingly clear, given her recent dietary habits. Tell them that I was startled by the guns. It's true. I was startled by those damn guns going off in my ear. You knew they were going to give a 17-gun salute, I pointed out. I was there when the security agent told you. You were as drunk as a skunk. Oh my, that's why you fell into the grave. Good God, in front of all those people. Jersey looked up at me in injured pride, and I glared back. But all at once, I felt it coming over me. I just couldn't help myself. I started laughing. Jersey's expression changed to surprise. Then she started laughing too. We laughed until tears streamed down our faces. We laughed until we could no longer catch our breath. We were choking with laughter and holding our sides at the thought of my mother sprawled butt up 6 feet down in a hole in the ground before they even had a chance to lower the coffin. Right in front of the peanut farmer and everything, Jersey practically screamed. And this set us off on another peal. Right in front of Augustus and Grace, I gasped in hysterical sobs. It took a long time to run down, but at last we subsided into moans and chuckles. I wiped my tears with my napkin and leaned back with a sigh, holding my stomach, which was raw from laughter. I wish Sam could have seen what you did, I told Jersey, squeezing her arm. It was so bizarre. Just what tickled his funny bone. He would have died laughing. He died anyway, said Jersey, and she ordered another drink. At 7 o'clock, I arrived at the Mark in the limo August sent for me. He hired a car whenever he visited any city, so he'd never have to degrade himself flagging down a cab. My father was into appearances. I told the driver to collect me at 10 and take me back to the little Victorian inn where I was staying across the bridge. 3 hours of Augustus and Grace, as I knew from experience, would be more than adequate. Their penthouse suite was large and filled with the lavish flower arrangements Grace required in any surroundings. Augustus opened the door when I knocked and regarded me sternly. My father was always elegant, with his silvery hair and tanned complexion. Now, in a black cashmere blazer and gray trousers, he looked every bit the part of the feudal lord he'd been rehearsing for all of his life. "You're late," he said, glancing at his gold wristwatch. "You were to arrive at 6:30, so we could speak privately before dinner." "This morning was enough of a family reunion for me," I told him. I instantly regretted alluding to the earlier events of the day. "And that was something else I want to speak with you about. Your mother," said August. "First, what can I fix you to drink?" "I had lunch with Jersey," I said. "I'm not sure I need anything much stronger than water." Whenever Augustus went, he had a well-stocked bar set up, though he drank little himself. Maybe that was what went wrong when he and Mother were married. "I'll fix you a spritzer. That's light," he said, and squirted the soda with a mesh-encased bottle, handing me the wine glass. "Where's Grace?" I asked, taking a sip as he mixed himself a light scotch. "Ooh. She's lying down. She's quite upset by that little debacle your mother pulled this morning, and who can blame her? It was unforgivable." August always referred to Jersey as "your mother," as though I were responsible for her very existence, rather than the other way around. "Actually," I told him, "I felt her display provided a well-needed touch of brightness to the entire morbid affair. I mean, can't really imagine providing brass bands, shooting off guns, and giving someone a medal, all because in the service of the US government, he got himself blown into pieces like a dismembered patchwork quilt. Don't change the subject on me, young lady." My father reprimanded me in this most authoritarian tone of voice. "Your mother's behavior was absolutely shocking, deplorable. We were fortunate that reporters were not permitted." Augustus would never use words like disgusting or humiliating. They were too subjective, involving personal emotion. He was only interested in the objective, the remote, things like appearance and reputation. In that regard, it was a good deal more like him than I cared to admit. But I still couldn't bear the fact that he was more interested in my mother's comportment at a social event than in Sam's brutal death. I wonder if people scream when they die like that," I asked aloud. Augustus turned on his heel so I couldn't see his face. He went across to the bedroom door. "I'll wake up Grace," he informed me over his shoulder, "so she'll be ready in time for dinner." And we're going to stop there. Interesting. I kind of happen to be a truth with humor person myself, so I can appreciate the solemnness of a military funeral, touched by a drunk lady falling into the grave before the, I mean, truth and humor, right? All right, you guys. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time.